everybody, this is what we're going to be making today. It's a light up shadow box Christmas scene card. If you're new, welcome to the channel. If you're coming back to the channel, welcome back. Hope you're having a lovely Saturday, lovely weekend. To start with, I've cut 3 each of these sizes of trees from just plain green cardstock. I've used this snowman stamp and die set to make the snowman, and the die has loads of different bits. You can make different hats and different arms and all sorts of things. You put dicky bows and stuff on them. And then the aperture from the shadow box, I've cut 3 pieces of cardstock to fit within that. And then from those 3 pieces of cardstock, I've cut 3 apertures. You want all of the apertures to line up with each other, that you build the seam into the circles. I've cut this from 300 GSM cardstock, so it's quite heavy, because it does need to kind of hold its own. And this is what I use for my card bases when I make cards as well. And then I've cut one more, which is larger than these, which covers the back of the frame. And then I've used glitter glue and faux snow. However, you don't actually need to use glitter glue because you don't actually see any of the glitter through the faux snow, which I didn't realise at the time. I still carried on using the glitter glue, I just had it to hand. This isn't one of my most expensive glitter glues, so I wasn't overly fussed. It's £1 for like a great big tube from the range. So, you know, I wasn't overly fussed on that. So basically I'm just kind of randomly putting bits of the glitter glue here and there on the tree to make it look like snowfall. I put it on the edge of the trees as well. Just where, you know, I think it would look nice to have some snow. Snow falls here, there and everywhere, so just kind of randomly put it on. And then just put the snow over the top of it and kind of lightly bashed it off from the back, and then left them aside to dry once I'd done all of them. I would use, if you're not using glitter glue, use tacky glue. And then once I've done all the trees, I do the same with the snowman. So I put the glue on and then kind of spread it around with my finger. Make sure it's all kind of as flat as I can get it. But you do need to work fairly fast because obviously you don't want the glue to set before you put the faux snow on. And then I just pat it down with my finger before I apply the faux snow. And again, you don't really see any of the glitter glue shining through the faux snow. So if you've got more expensive glitter glues, don't, and they're the small bottles, don't waste them, just use tacky glue for this. However, there is a video where I've made a snowy scene with a robin, which I've actually put on my channel. It's a glass bottle decoupaged, and on that I've made some snow all around the bottle. You could actually do the same with this, make it into like a paste. If you head across to my channel, you'll find that video, and you can see how I've made the paste with the glitter glue, glitter and the snow, and applied it that way. That would probably work quite well with this. It'd probably adhere the snow a little bit better as well, actually. going forward, if I was to do anything like this again, I'd probably do that. However, that was kind of a thought process that I had whilst I was making the bottle, and I didn't have it whilst I was doing this. But like I say, going forward, I think that would actually be a better way of doing it. And you can see there, I've put it on fairly thick. And then on the back side of each of the apertures, I've done like 3 different heights and used that. It's like a snow hill type die, and done it at varying heights on each card on the back of like the aperture. And then on the very back, I've used this vellum as kind of like the sky. This isn't any available any longer, I believe. From it was a Sarah Signature collection, which they tend to go quite fast, so I don't think you can get hold of this one anymore. But you know, any kind of sky, you could do it yourself with inks or anything like that. And I do put this onto some white cardstock, and it kind of helps you to see it a bit better once I've cut it out to size. I haven't given measurements because obviously it all depends on what size frame you start with yourself. My frame's like 18 centimetres by 18 centimetres. That's the external frame, so the internal I believe was like 15 by 15. So here you can see I've put it, cut some white card to go behind it, which will cover the brown back of the frame, the bit there that you put on the wall. Just making sure it fits. Obviously vellum and glue, you need to be very inconspicuous, if that's the right word, or hide where you add the glue. So I've put it right around the edges, and that's the only part, because that's going to be covered with the edges of the apertures. And then once I was going to go and put it all together, I realised that the cardstock wasn't quite as heavy as I wanted it to be, so I've added a second layer on the back of the trees, because they're going to be, although they're going to be glued from the bottom, obviously I can't glue them at the top, so I wanted them to have some more stability. So I add another layer of cardstock to the backs of each of them, which works quite well. They could have possibly done with a third, but a double layer's fine. I believe it's about a 280 to 300 cardstock. I don't actually know the actual weight of it because I bought it all from somebody who was selling a job lot of cardstock, so I don't actually know the exact weight of it, but at a guess I'd say it's about 300, give or take. But yeah, like I say, I wanted the trees to kind of have a bit more stability, so I've added a second layer to the back. I wanted it to be green because if you did see any of it through, or on the sides or anything, I didn't want it to be a white cardstock because obviously it just wouldn't look right, so I kept it green. Obviously going forward I would have done this before I added the faux snow, but you know, it worked out fine. But you do need to be careful with the faux snow because you know it does come away fairly easy, which is why I say, you know, if you was to make it into a paste with the glitter glue like I did for the bottle, which you can go back and have a look at. It's another video that I cut out, I think it was last Sunday. It showed you how to make it on that video. If I can figure out how to link that video to the end of this one, then I'll link that to this one so that if you want to, you can go on and have a look and see what I mean. And going forward, if I ever add any faux snow to any project again, that is the way that I will be doing it, because it gives it some nice sparkle, and I think it will stick better because the snow is encapsulated in the glue rather than put onto the glue. I think it will hold it a lot better. Obviously you just need to be careful with the amount of moisture using cardstock, but you know, that video will explain all of that, so it's well worth going to have a look, having a watch. And like I say, if I can work it out, I will add it to the end of this video. If I can't, then I'll try and link it underneath the video, and hopefully that will work. And then once the snowy banks are in place on the back of the cardstock, I add some all-purpose glue. I use Kalau. I'll put some of that down, and then I'll add some 3D sticky foam. I like to add, although this is very, very sticky, this foam, I have heard that foam can kind of deteriorate over time, and obviously I don't want that, so, or the stickiness can deteriorate, so I use some Kalau glue first onto the cardstock, and then I'll apply the 3D foam glue. And then on this layer, and most of the layers, apart from the very top layer, I've added 2 layers of the sticky foam just to double it up, give it extra thickness, because I think it's a 1mm foam. And then on the very top layer I actually add 3 layers. And between each layer I don't add the Kalau glue, I add tacky glue, just to help them to adhere over time, so just in case, you know, the glue on the foam, or the foam sort of deteriorates a little bit, then I've got some tacky glue in between the layers there. And then some of them I've added trees on the back of the aperture, and then I've added them on the front as well, or some I've just added on the front. So, you know, you just work out what depth you want the trees going to. So that very big tree on the back I've added at the back of the aperture, on the very back aperture. And then the other 2 I've added, I think they were on the front. Yeah, on the front you can see there. And then on this aperture I add them, I think, I don't think this is the very top aperture, this is the second from the top. Can't remember whether I add them to the back and the front. I think I only add them to the front on this one. Yeah, I just add one, which I'm trying to figure out to kind of have that fit in between the two, roughly, of the two that go behind it. So I try and stagger them as they come forward so that, you know, they're not all just blocking each other out. And again, I add a bit of, I'm actually adding a bit of clow onto this one because it's going directly onto the cardstock and not onto another foam sheet or foam 3D foam tape or pad. And then I'll add this directly to the front of this one, and then I'll add one more aperture in front of this one. So this isn't the biggest tree that I've used. I've used 3 sizes. So this is like one size down from the larger one that I've used. I didn't actually use all 3 of the larger ones. I used one of the largest, 3 of this one, and then 3 of the smaller one. However, the set that I got from, I think it was from Amazon or Temu, I've actually got about 10 different trees. There's some that are a lot larger than the largest one on here, and then a lot smaller than the smallest one that I've used on here. So there's a lot in the set to play with. But obviously I have to go by the size of the frame and the size of the aperture, and I didn't want them to be ridiculously big, so they worked a bit better in proportion of the snowman as well. So, you know, I take all of that into consideration. And then I'm just laying up my foam pads here. Like I say, I lay 3 foam pads on top of each other on this one. Sorry, not on this one. This one's too high. Two foam pads high. And then just slotting it into place there. So you can see I've kind of layered the trees so that they don't layer on top of each other. I staggered them so that, you know, it's given some depth as you look through it. So obviously if you just lay them on top of each other on different heights, it's not going to give it that depth of scene. And then on the next layer I've used 3 smaller ones. And then I'm showing you on this one how I actually add the hill, snow flurry, whatever you want to call it, to the back, so that you can, you know, sort of figure out how high up or low down you want it. As you can see, it's a straight cut at the bottom, so you can make them as high or as low as you want them to be, because you can cut the bottom to whatever size. So I've literally just cut them all different sizes. At the back obviously is the highest, and then brought them down in height as I've come forward. And then on the back of the aperture I've added it. I don't add it to the front, I've added it to the back, and so that I know I'm getting it in the right place where I want it. I just have a little pencil mark over the top of where it sits, and then as long as I know I put the glue just below that, then I know that it will stick nicely to the card. And again, I'm just using Clow all-purpose glue within those lines right up to the edge, just to make sure, not on the bottom edge, left, you know, probably a mil from the bottom edge. because obviously I don't want it to cause any problems and any glue oozing out or anything like that on the bottom. Not that I put loads of glue, but I didn't want to, you know, run into any problems, so I've left about a millimetre on the bottom, which is fine because it's going to have foam pads and all the rest of it holding it in place on the bottom anyway. So it's mostly around the top edge that you kind of want to make sure you've got it. And then I just put the slope in place and just make sure it's burnished down and glued well. And then I add the 3D foam tape onto the back again, the same way that I did with the other layers, but like I say, I will put it 3 high because I wanted this one quite close to the top, you know, the top of the aperture and close to the glass within the frame. Although in hindsight I could have probably got away with just putting 2, but it was 3 by the time, you know, by the time I'd put the 3 on, it had to stay 3. But that was fine, you know. It didn't cause any problems, you know, the snowman's not touching the glass. It is very close to the glass, but it's not actually touching the glass, so it's not a big problem. And I was going to add faux snow to the bottom once it was all put together. I was going to actually add it into the glass frame, but me having a dim moment, didn't think about it, put it all in. I haven't filmed it because I thought I don't want to bore you all. I put all the snow in, put the glass on, stood it up, and the faux snow started to fall out through the tiny gaps. So I was like, that plan didn't quite work. So if you're thinking of doing that, I would advise against it because it's very messy. So yeah, I had to take it apart and get as much of the faux snow out as I could, and then hoover loads of faux snow up that had blown here, there and everywhere as I took it all to pieces, and had a bit of a curse while my husband laughed at me, and then once I'd cleaned all the mess up, I could resume filming and finishing it off. But yeah, it was a process that I don't want to do again, let's put it that way, because the faux snow, if anybody's worked with it, it's so lightweight, it literally goes everywhere, so you can't breathe too heavy. Definitely don't sneeze because you'll be in a mess. So I had to hoover I got my husband to hoover all down me. Luckily I had an apron on, and I wear old clothes when I'm crafting anyway, because I get covered in all sorts of paint, glitter, you name it, messy work. So I had to get my husband to hoover my overall down, and then I had to hoover my whole desk, all of my floor, and then I could carry on finishing off. Well, it was finished, but I could put it to bed, well, rebuild it, because I'd already put it together, and then had to kind of dismantle it. Luckily I hadn't put the lights in, otherwise it would have probably been even more messy, so but I wanted to try the faux snow before I put the lights in anyway, so I'm glad I did. So yeah, once I'd done all of that, I could then finish putting it all back together and then add in the lights. So yeah, that was something I don't want to repeat again in a hurry. it was not fun. And then here I'm just putting a bit of all-purpose onto the bottom at the back of the small trees, because they're only going on cardstock, and then just gluing those in place. And then I kind of want them to stick out either side of the snowman, because you're not going to see behind the snowman with the tiny trees, so there was no point sort of adding them behind there. And then the snowman, I'm just building him back together. Obviously everything that you add onto the snowman is going onto the faux snow, so I would advise using tacky glue. I didn't want to add hot glue because I didn't know how it would interfere with the faux snow. I didn't want it to melt it or anything like that, because I think, if I remember rightly, I think it's made with plastic, so I didn't want to get into a mess. I'd already had one mess making this, so I didn't want to make another one, so I decided tacky glue was the way to go. So that's what I done, and I just basically built the snowman. So I've added the bobble hat, scarf, eyes, mouth, nose, buttons, and like I say, it is a stamp and die set, but I didn't use any of the stamps. I've only used the dies to cut all the bits and pieces out. And then to try and add a little bit of texture in the hat and the scarf, I've just used some, although it doesn't look like it, I've actually used some deep red. It looks black, but it is actually a deep red to go with the red cardstock, but that's fine. It still looks good to me. And then just adding the buttons here before the snowman starts to come to life. I mean, like I say, the set, it's got, you know, varying buttons, it's got different arms, it's got, you can use a snowboard, a witch's stick, it's got various hats. You can use a top hat, you can use a bow or a dicky bow. It's a good set, and I believe it's still available from Crafter's Companion. I don't think it's gone yet, but their things sort of come and go fairly quickly, and I did get it in a sale, so I don't know whether it was a sale because they only had a few remaining or not. I'm not sure, but I'm sure you can get lots and lots of different snowmen from all, you know, all good crafters. Companies will make them. And then this one I decided to go with the sticks for his arms. You can put gloves on the ends, but I decided not to. I just left it just as sticks. And then I've added the snowman on, I think it's with just normal cloud, possibly tacky glue. I can see, I think that's my tacky glue bottle there to hand, so I might have added it because it's overlapping onto the faux snow on the trees there, so I probably used tacky glue, to be honest, but I should be able to tell you in a second when I pick it up. Actually no, I think I already added it. Yeah, so it's definitely the tacky glue there. I'm just giving it a moment or two to kind of take hold, and then there it is in the frame, and I spared you looking at all the mess with the faux snow falling out everywhere. Then I've added the lights on the very back layer, and then I just want to glue the battery pack to the back of the frame, and then I'm using these hook and loops, and because they're going on to kind of like chipboard, I believe the back of the frame's made from, and onto like the plastic where the batteries are made, the battery pack, sorry, I'm adding tacky glue onto both of them before I hold it in place there for a few seconds. I had already tried the lights just to make sure I was happy with where they were placed by the time before I'd done this step and put the back on. So yeah, just make sure you're happy with the placement of them before you go and add this part. I didn't actually tack any of the lights down other than around the edges, but I fed it like a snake, but I've only attached glue to the edges. I didn't want to risk being seen through the vellum. And then that's the finished sample. Hope you've made it this far in the video. Hope you've liked the video. If you have, please subscribe. It would make me very happy and it would help me to grow my new channel. Give me a like. Subscription doesn't cost anything. And I hope it's inspired you to have a go as well. Let me know if you've given it a go. Would love to know. Thanks ever so much for watching. It really is appreciated. A subscription, would be really appreciated too. Love you all. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a good week, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.